her sister and someone who stayed by her side till the end of her life, I can honestly say that Ashley lived out all the words of wisdom she wrote. An hour is not enough time to cover Ashley's life and the impact it's had on me and my siblings. Ashley was the bedrock of our family and sacrificed her childhood to make sure we could have some form of normalcy. When we were kids, our mom became bedridden with multiple painful autoimmune issues and illnesses. In addition to caring for our mom, Ashley took it upon herself to raise us kids. I think she was about 10. She was our personal Maria Von Trapp, if you guys have ever seen Sound of Music. That is not fantasy, that was Ashley. She was so much like Julie Andrews in that way. And Mary Poppins, another Julie Andrews, all wrapped into one. Sometimes she could get a little too Mary Poppins and the practically perfect bit, and I'd be like, you can tone it down a notch. But she really did work on her pride, and another reason why I love her so much. Ashley was far from perfect. She would be the first one to admit that. What Ashley was someone who knew how much they needed Jesus and allowed him to shape her. He was the potter and she was the clay, and what a beautiful pot she became. Ashley could have very easily become religious, wanting to look perfect on the outside with pride rotting her on the inside, but she didn't. At an early age, she came to the conclusion that it didn't matter what anyone but God thought of her. She died with barely a penny to her name, but to God she was wealthy beyond measure because she had invested in what mattered, loving God and loving people. What made Ashley outstanding and strong was her daily reliance upon the person who made her. She wouldn't want people to try to be like her. Please don't try to be like her. Don't be like anyone else. Just she wanted people to be like Jesus. Although Ashley wasn't perfect, I have to admit that she was the most amazing sister. An amazing sister. And one of the most amazing people I have ever had the privilege to meet. It was a joy to be her sister, and it was an honor to serve her until she took her last breath. Ashley's life changed me forever, and I promise her every day that I will not go to heaven empty-handed. Because I know when I get there, she's going to run to me, hug me, and then ask me who I brought with me. It's hard to talk about Ashley because she meant so much to us, so we're going to have to let her speak for herself. We have selected some of her writings that highlight the person she was, and we hope it blesses you guys. We will also have Angela, where's Angela? Angela and Felicia speak, and I just share a few words about Ashley, and then we're also going to have an open mic moment. So if anyone wants to come up and share a bit about Ashley and what you loved about her, whatever you feel led to share, please feel free to do so. I just want to be respectful of everyone's time, so just make sure to, like me, don't ramble. Let's see. Okay, so Ashley had a blog for 10 years. I think she started it when she was 17, I think her senior year of high school. And before that, she had lots and lots of journals. But on her deathbed, she held my hand and said, please do not read any of my journals. So I promised her that I wouldn't do that. I haven't even cheated. I haven't looked at any of them. It's just, she was very particular about that. But she did allow me to read her blog, and I found a bunch of really cool writings. Some of them would just really encapsulate the person that she was, so I wanted to share some of these with you guys. On November 12th of 2010, when she was 17 years old, she wrote this. This was like her first post on her blog when she started it. For those of you who don't know my life's ambitions and goals, which would be just about everyone, sometimes including myself, I want to be known as someone who told a good story and was completely consumed with God's love and the love of God. I would also like to learn how to pluck a chicken and build a log cabin. But seriously, I believe that I was given a pen to wield and a mind to move it. With this pen and with stories, he will teach myself and others about his love, his plans for us, and the marvelous gifts of life and victory. I cannot live a boring life. I care very little for monetary success, but I do want to leave beautiful chaos in my wake. I want to stir up the people to cause them to lift their eyes toward heaven If by God's might I can do this one thing, then I will have succeeded. I think everyone here knows that she did do that. I really like this. She did a character observation of herself. And I think to some people they would think that Ashley was maybe really quiet. And she was, but she was kind of like quiet on the outside, crazy on the inside. And this character observation just really summed this up really nicely. And she wrote this in November as well of 2010 when she was 17. I am slightly non-conventional, partly because I see the world a little differently than most, and partly because I want to be. I take pride in being different, and therefore being myself. My taste in fashion and accessories is plain, wispy, and earthy in color, although I can dress more sharp or soft. I am also not afraid to try new outfits that might actually be terrible. I don't care much. If it's comfortable and I like it, others' opinions don't really matter, except that of my mother's, who often tells me, no. I haven't got that many friends, but I'm not hungry for society. I like being around people, but not necessarily talking to them, especially if we are not like-minded. This was her judgy face, you can tell. Do you remember this year? Yes. She got past that part. She got to a point where she could talk to literally anybody. There was a point where she's like, if we don't have anything in common, and I was like, all right, well, you're gonna be a little lonely. If I do talk, I tend to talk a lot, especially when I'm nervous. I have tried to cast off age and become sort of an ageless person, which I think I have succeeded at. I've always wanted to remain a child, but a wise child. I am sort of an elder figure to all those around me, and oddly enough, I find solace in leading and protecting people, but I can also submit fairly easily when I think another can lead well. I'm a very daydreamy person. Oh my gosh, yes. And the one thing I have tried to master is my mind. That is my vice and enemy. It can carry me away to melodramatic or silly pursuits or the destruction of people, and I can think I am great when I am not. I am probably a little more complex than most believe and a little more simple than I believe. I really have not got much aspiration to marry, and for a while I thought that this was better than me wanting to marry, but I see now that it's just different. Some people were meant to taste different things and stand on different shores. If it doesn't make one sad or one better, they are only different. I'm not career-minded per se, but I do want to do a lot of things with my life. I would like to be someone creative and fun and easygoing and deep-minded and simple and in love with Jesus. That is much easier said than done. I am trying to be more truthful with myself and everyone around me because I used to build up this mirage that I was perfect, and I try to not do that anymore. On the days that my skin is bad, I wear glasses. When I am especially happy and aware of it, I move my jaw side to side. When I'm being dramatic, I squint my left eye. After watching a movie that I particularly enjoyed, I tend to take on the characteristics or actions of a certain character. I love writing. I try not to be too bossy. I am more fearful of paperwork and driving than I am of robbers and battles. No joke. That's so true. She got to be a really good driver, though. But she swore like she was never going to drive and walk around for the rest of her life. Did I say I love writing? My mindset is often this. Me in a green dress, wind whipping all around me, standing on the edge of a sort of cliff and looking straight into the sun without it hurting my eyes. I love looking at bright lights because it reminds me of heaven. And the fact that I can't look at them pains not only my eyes, but in an odd little way, it breaks my heart. My favorite author is C.S. Lewis. I try hard now not to make myself stand out because I think differently to get attention, but just to enjoy my differences quietly and bring them out only when they help others and not elevate me. I'm so glad for my family and my very best friend Felicia, who has put up with me and I hope to know on into eternity. I think when Ashley was in high school or middle school, do you want to read this part, Ruth?
I wanted to read, I wanted to say a few things.
Yeah,
I wanted to
absolutely.
read something, and then I thought we could read from the book. And
Okay. Cool, perfect.
Did you want to finish what you were going to say?
Well, I'll hop back to this later.
Okay.
Okay, well, so I was the second oldest in the family. Ashley was the oldest. And I honestly, see, I didn't know if I was going to be able to talk.
That's why I started talking so much.
Because,
That's why I've got this.
everyone in this room knew Ashley to a different extent. And I would say, The crazy thing about Ashley was the more you got to know her, the more you realized you didn't really know her. And the more that, like, she grew as a person all the time. She never, ever stopped growing as a person. And it was almost like you turn around and she would have grown more. It was like a beautiful flower that, like, would just keep blossoming. And you would think that, you know, she went through really, really hard stuff, and you always thought maybe at this point, you know, she's gonna just, maybe her little flower petals are gonna wilt, you know, maybe she won't be as strong this time. And she would just get stronger, and she would just be deeper and more beautiful, and she would care more for others. And I think, you know, in what marked her life was selflessness. She was like a Navy SEAL of selflessness. And you just didn't even really realize how the depth that she would give, because she really didn't put the spotlight on herself. This is why we wanted to read her writings. She didn't even really talk about having a blog. You know, it was, or even like her YouTube channel. Like she never broadcasted herself, but her inner world was rich and beautiful. And she really didn't need anything or anybody but Jesus. And she really only had him. And her life really did show it. And I told you laughed when I said I wanted to say this. So I don't know if it sounds silly, but honestly, I said all I want to say is it was a privilege and an honor to be her sister. Truly it was. I don't know why you laughed when I said that.
I was like, why did you laugh? I didn't laugh. I literally just said it was a...
I know, that's what I was like.
I literally wrote down it was a privilege and honor. I didn't laugh. This is fake news over here, guys. Don't listen.
No, really, it was. And, you know, me and her, we were very, very close, especially when we were younger. And I think all of the difficulties with our mom's illness, it did make us closer. But I know, even if none of that had happened, we would have still been close. She was the most amazing older sister, because she did not have a thought for herself. Sometimes she did, but then, you know, like she had, like, she would know when she was wrong. She did, and she was very quick to correct herself.
Pride was her biggest downfall.
Pride was her biggest downfall,
but it makes sense because she was really
pretty
awesome.
So, but she really was, you know, especially when I was little, she was not like any other older sister. She just looked out for the little ones. Just that mother hen, just loving, caring, and bringing you into her world. And do you want to read the rules? Okay.
Do you want to read them?
I'll read them. So we actually, when we were going through Ashley's stuff, all of that stuff, she kept all that in boxes. And we found a paper. It's like that burgundy colored thing called My Creed out there that some of you guys saw. We're not entirely sure how old she was when she wrote it, but I'm guessing she was about 15, maybe 14. But it was sort of just a declaration to the Lord, giving him her life. Now, she had given the Lord her life when she was 3. She's a little overachiever there. Of course, by the time she has like a cognizant, she's already on it.
If there's a God, I'm
Yeah,
serving
she's
it.
already there. But when I think that she, as you grow older, you start to see the depths of your own heart, and she really, began to just understand that surrendering to God is absolutely everything. And so in that little My Creed thing, it was a, like I said, just a declaration to the Lord of her life. And at the end, she had 10 rules for life, way before Jordan Peterson, guys. What does he have, 12 rules for life? She was the OG. Jordan Peterson, yes. Jordan Peterson in a different body, guys. So this is Ashley's, literally was her rules for life. So number 1, put God first in everything. Number 2, don't judge, or you will be judged. Number 3, when you feel superior to others, ask God to search your heart. Number 4, do not talk about others unless it's good. She really stuck to that one.
She really did. I mean, everyone has a moment.
Yeah, but she really stuck to that
But
one.
she
held us all to a very high standard of not gossiping or talking bad about anyone.
Yeah, even they only use prayer requests when needed. Number 6, don't try to be pure on your own, but allow God to put things in your life that bring the bad out of you so that He can work on your life. Number 7, don't pretend, be real. Number 8, bring others into the circle. Number 9, don't justify wrongs. And 10, be humble. She did live those, and she did live them because she didn't do it on her own. I mean, that was a very huge, this wasn't actually being this. It was her giving her life to God and the Lord working through her. Did you want to read this? Or
Oh, well, I did have one more thing to share. I do want to make sure we keep track of time. We're going on time. But I don't think a lot of people knew that Ashley had a period in her life that was pretty dark. She had gone through a lot, having to take care of all of us kids, and dealing with being a caretaker for her mom on top of that. And she had a bout of depression and anxiety and all of this stuff. And she overcame it and conquered it. And even when she was bedridden, she was the last 6 months of her life, she completely lost the ability to walk. She was fully immobile. Rachel and I would take care of all the needs that you have when you're fully unable to walk or barely use your hands and stuff. But she was never depressed. She obviously would get sad and everything, but she became a master of dealing with emotions, not shoving them down. And she was just she taught us to do that. And I mean, losing a sister that you're so close with that you pretty much never, we were never apart. I left for college. Rachel left and got married near the end of Ashley's life, but we were always together, and all three of us were very, very close. So anytime I'm sad or dealing with the depressing reality that she's gone, I think of what she would say to get me through it, because she was like my counselor, and she was just such an overcomer. And I don't want you guys to think that Ashley was perfect and walked on water and she just had a halo floating over her head. But what made her amazing and impactful and an amazing legacy, was her reliance upon Jesus. She didn't do it in her own strength. She didn't do it on her own. And she would get up every morning, read her Bible, and have what she called breakfast with Jesus, and she would just talk with him, and that continued until she took her last breath. And it was really beautiful to see that moment where she got to go home and be done. And she also, throughout her entire life, she always wanted to be in heaven with Jesus. She would always talk about that. And we were like, that's kind of morbid, a little, why do you talk about it so much? But she just had such a desire to be in heaven with Jesus. And so I just think it was very fitting that she did end up going early, because some people just have a very strong desire to be in heaven, and she did. And I don't think it was self-fulfilling or it's not like she caused it. I think God kind of gave her the knowledge that it was just going to happen. And that's part of the reason why she documented her life so well. She was very intent upon leaving her mark. She didn't care about money. She didn't care about that kind of success. She didn't care about getting married. She wanted to leave something more impactful than those things. So I do, was there anything else?
Actually,
Yeah,
yes.
go for it.
So this is a poem that she wrote. It's called A Little at a Time. I am building myself a little at a time. Each moment well spent marks my improvement. Learning to work in bits and doses. Learning when it is best to rest and play. For I haven't got much time. This I know is true. But if I manage what I have, I will leave behind a legacy. And she wrote that when she was in high school.
Really? In high school? So I do have, we did want to read some excerpts from Soldier Buttercup, but I wanted to bring up my brother, Michael, with his squad of guys on up here. She wrote this story, just a couple years before she passed. It was not that long
Maybe
ago.
4 years.
And I think when she was in college, and she went to college later in life because she put off going to college so that she could take care of her mom. She didn't finish until she was like late 20s or something like that. But she wrote this story. It's just one of my favorite short stories of hers. And as you guys could tell, she wrote a lot. She had a lot of stories. So many ideas that she didn't even finish. But I wanted my brother to read it, and also
Yeah, no, I'm good.
and if you want, you can share.
This is a time-honored tradition that my family makes me do. There's something that my sisters and my mom loved to make me do, which was read stories that they knew were going to make me cry. Yeah, so.
Oh, I
No,
feel
it's
so
all
right.
good.
I totally forgot.
This is a classic tradition. So, okay, yeah. What I would say about my sister is that if you could think of any good adjective about a person, you could fill it in about Ashley. Ashley was the kindest person I ever met. Ashley was the smartest person I ever met. And she was one of the best people I've ever met. She was gentle. She was so intelligent. But what I'll talk about right now is Ashley was one thing that I would come up with that I would call the question master. And Ashley would, from the time I was so young, ask me questions that I really didn't want to even talk about or I didn't want to think about at the moment, but she was always asking me questions that would push the way I would think about things. And Ashley would never really tell me what to think. She always wanted to know what I thought. And one moment that sticks out and I think is really impactful in my life that is, Ashley was a catalyst in was a moment, I think I was 13 or 14, and at that time I was the typical rebellious teenage boy, and I didn't really want to, interact with my sisters or, I didn't want to hear from them or anything, but Ashley was always pushing through and making sure I would hear. So one day Ashley asked me, she said, "Who do you want to be?" And typically I said, I thought about it for a second and it made me uncomfortable, and I said, "I don't know, I don't really care." And she said, "Michael John, that's not good enough." And she didn't really say anything else about that. We moved on and we talked about something else. And as I grew up, we would talk a lot about philosophy and we would talk a lot about a bunch of different things. And I truthfully believe that if Ashley was born, hundreds or thousands of years ago, she would be one of the great philosophers of our time. Or if Ashley was exposed to a bigger audience, Ashley would be a New York Times bestseller or a Pulitzer winner. She is one of the greatest minds that I think this world has ever met, and I'm so lucky and privileged to be her brother and have her as my sister. But her asking me that really changed my life because it sits with me every single day. Who do you want to be? That question of purpose. And Ashley knew who she wanted to be. 100%. She took care of people, she cared for people, and she wanted to tell stories. And all those things now resonate with me. And I just hope to be able to carry on some sort of fraction of what Ashley can do. And I hear from people all the time that I don't know at all, and they tell me these stories about my sister. And she knows that I was so proud of her, but I wish she knew how really proud I was of her. And she would always, it's just the same thing every single time when I would see her. She would smile and she would hug me, and it didn't matter what pain she was going through. She was the toughest person that you had ever met in your life. And she was laying in the hospital bed at the end of her life, and she was talking to me about how my life was going, as if that mattered at all in that moment. But yeah, Ashley was the most special person that, I'm sure that you guys have ever met. You guys all knew her, but if someone didn't know Ashley, I would tell them how special she was. But if you can take anything away from, Ashley's life, just think about who do you want to be, and especially in the context of who do you want to be for Jesus. Now I'll read this story and I'll probably cry. Okay. Dale and Jenny were upfront, honest people. When they brought their firstborn, Abigail, home from the hospital, the couple took turns holding her and squinting down at her tiny form. "She's not very pretty, is she, Jen?" Dale said plainly. "No, she isn't," Jenny said with a solemn shake of the head. "She might grow out of it," Dale stroked his daughter's head with his thumb. "She might," Jenny replied, kissing her baby's forehead. "She might not," Dale said, looking over his wife's shoulder at the little pink bundle. He took her gently from her mother's arms and smiled. "Regardless," he said, speaking more to the baby than anyone else, "we will love her just the way she is." Abigail did not grow out of it. She was a plain, homely child with no rose to her cheeks and no bounce to her hair. Her eyes, though a little oddly shaped, were her best feature. They absolutely sparkled when she saw something she loved. One day, when Abigail was 3 years old, Dale looked up from a book he was reading. It was nighttime and Abby was soundly asleep. "Jenny," he asked, "have you ever told Abby that she's beautiful?" Jenny stepped out of the bathroom and placed an earring on the dresser. "No, darling, I don't think I have. It's never come up. She's still little." "She won't be for long," Dale mused thoughtfully. "I don't want her to grow up thinking she's ugly, but I don't want us to lie to her either. What do you think we should do?" Jenny sat down at the edge of the bed. Both of them were quiet for a minute. "Well," Jenny thought aloud, "beauty is more than skin deep. There is so much more beauty than someone looks, and I hope we can teach her those qualities." "Yes," Dale stared hard in front of him. After a few minutes, his eyes flickered with an idea. "Jen, let's do this. Let's watch for whenever she does something good and whenever she does something, and we'll tell her she is beautiful." Jenny smiled and patted Dale's knee. "I like that, Abby." For the rest of Abby's childhood, her mother and father watched her closely for any time they could truthfully praise her for her inner beauty. "I saw you help your dad fold the clothes today without even being asked. That was so beautiful, Abby. You were so beautiful when you shared your favorite toy with your cousin today. Dad is proud of you." Dale spent many hours outdoors with his daughter. Though he was not strictly speaking an outdoorsman, he walked often and long, giving her a deep love and appreciation for nature. "Slow down" was his mantra. She loved listening to him read and would often play on the floor until she fell asleep while he read a new book or an interesting article. Her mother was usually working with her hands and always invited Abby into her work. She was patient with spills in the kitchen, sticky hands, and messes on the table. "Life is messy, Abby girl," she would say. "If you're afraid of the mess, you're afraid of life." The three of them were far from perfect, but they laughed at themselves and asked for forgiveness and gave love freely without fear. Dale and Jenny always had a smile to give to any passerby. Abby thought they were some of the most beautiful people she knew. When Abby was old enough, she was a little older than most. Her parents felt it was time to put her in school. "She is a solid, sturdy girl. I dare anyone to try and shake her," Dale stated proudly the night before her first day of school. "And if they do, we'll be there to catch her," Jen said, pounding out some clay on the counter. "Yes, we will," Dale nodded. "But she has a quiet strength. I think she'll do well." "You know," Jen said, wiping her hands on the towel, "I looked up at her today when she was by the window. The sun was shining in her hair. She looked over at me and smiled. And my heart stopped. She really is beautiful." Jen almost teared up. Dale rested his hand on Jen's. "We gave her all the love we could give, all the love we've been given. I think that's what makes her beautiful." Abby's elementary years were largely a success. She was bright, and though she didn't do well in every subject, she did in the ones that mattered most. When Abby graduated into middle school, social life became markedly different. She noticed how students grouped together in the halls before class. All the clusters of young people wore similar clothing, parroting pet phrases to one another. Abby floated by them unnoticed, analyzing their behavior from an unbothered distance. Her eyes drifted outside the smallish windows lining the hall. It would be a long time before the summer when she could live outside again. It wasn't long before Abby made friends. She was easygoing and always had something to share with a neighbor, but not everyone took to her. Allison Beck was one such person. For one reason or another, Allison resonated Abby.
Resented.
Oh, resented, my bad. Allison's life was a mystery. No one knew if she was wealthy or poor. She never talked about her parents except in jest or complaint. She nearly always had the latest fashions, but could have been thrifted. Her makeup seemed cheap but flawless. There was an unsettled air about her that put others on edge. No one really knew her, and she was quick to put on a mask. But Allison was physically beautiful, and it made it her supreme goal to be the object of everyone's desire. Perhaps she felt threatened by Abby's unbothered nature or her nonchalant way of dress. Perhaps she disdained her for her supposed ugliness, which didn't seem to bother Abby a bit. Maybe it was because her friends, whom she had to catch with claw and nail, give Abby smiles that they didn't give her. For whatever reason, spite, jealousy, or anger, Allison decided to make an ugly mark on Abby's happiness. One morning in the cafeteria before the first bell rang, Allison sauntered over to the table where Abby sat and plopped herself down with a satisfied air. Abby, who was doodling at the time, looked up, surprised. "Nice doodles," Allison said with ice in her voice. "You should really see my drawings, though. My latest one is hanging in the hallway." "Oh," Abby said, her stomach dropping slightly. "Just don't try to copy me. I really hate it when people do that." Allison could see Abby shifting uncomfortably. She raised her eyebrows and smirked. "Nice talking to you." Abby sat there feeling heat building up in her stomach and chest. Her stomach raced, but she said nothing. The bell soon rang and she went on to class. Over the next few weeks, Allison went out of her way to slyly cut Abby down and out. Abby said nothing, but became more withdrawn. Her parents noticed the sparkle had gone out of her eyes, but didn't want to press her about it just yet. She stared harder and harder out of the windows. One morning in science class, Allison and Abby were paired together for a project. Allison, feeling successful in her war against Abby, became brazen. "It must be really hard for you, Abby," she said in mock sympathy. "What's hard?" Abby said, not wanting to hear the answer. "You're just not that, pretty. Never been asked out, have you?" No. Abby had never cared about dating, but the way Allison phrased it made her suddenly feel left out. Allison pressed her pen onto the paper, making perfect tiny letters as she wrote, "If you put a little attention into your presentation, I'm sure we could do something with you. If you let me, I could give you some tips." For a few moments, Abby looked at Allison. Her hair was pinned straight. Her eyes were set with luscious mascara and eyeshadow. Her lips and cheeks were rosy, and her clothes fit like a glove. She wondered what she might look like if she strove to be an object of desire. But then she looked into Allison. She saw a creature of worry, anger, and smallness compressed into a tiny corner of the universe, perhaps never to break free. A wave of understanding washed over her. She could feel her mother and father's love as she looked into Allison with pity and compassion. Whether spoiled or neglected, Allison had not known love. Now she craved it, but not in the way she needed. Abby's stomach was still hot and fluttery, but she found that she could crack a smile. That smile sent a calm through her, and she replied, "My parents always tell me I'm beautiful." Allison looked up sharply. Abby's face had grown distant from her. It was as if a large gulf or protective shield had been placed between them. Allison pressed her pen harder on the paper and tried to laugh it off, but she knew she had lost her seat of power. The two girls were silent until the bell rang. Abby walked out of the classroom with an elevated spirit. She speed-walked to her next class, feeling her hair whip around the side of her face. The smile that originated from her insides tugged at the corners of her mouth. All day, her spirits climbed higher and higher, and her smile grew brighter and brighter until she felt desperate to be alone with her feverish joy. As soon as the last bell dismissed the students, Abby crossed the school lawn, then took off, running as fast as her backpack would allow her. No longer did she feel the crushing burden of judgment. She was free from the pain of scrutiny, finally understood the true beauty that her parents had always been teaching her. Her eyes were turned outward towards the world, seeing more beauty in everything and everyone than she ever had before. When she arrived at home, her usually pallid face was blushed from her run, and her eyes were sparkling with tears of joy. She gathered herself before stepping inside and then called out, "Mom, I'm home!" Jenny's ears perked up at the sound of her daughter's voice. She came up quickly to meet her. Abby wasn't loading her backpack on the table as usual, but when she looked up, she could see a lovely change on the daughter's face. Throughout the rest of her school years, Abby remembered that day. Whenever she felt particularly sad or lonely, she would recall the memory and let it wash over her, baptizing her soul with joy once again. She was more free than ever in her love for others, not fearing rejection because she had already faced that pain. Of course, there were more rejections, and of course they hurt, but with every little twist of pain, her heart grew a little less brittle and more flexible to forgive and move forward. The flexibility allowed for more smiles, more laughter, and more embraces. Abby grew to develop taste, if not style, and she walked into a dreamy state of confidence. She graduated from high school without special honors and graduated from college several years later, too late according to most. However, she retained the love of learning and play, which she kept with every moment of the day. Allison was perpetually aesthetic. She planned every inch of her life and snipped it like shrubbery or lawn to suit her. She graduated from high school with almost every honor possible except for valedictorian, which she would never forgive Stephanie Berry for having. Never a hair out of place for the wind not allowed to touch her face. Many years later, at one of their high school reunions, Allison spotted Abby floating from one group to another. Her old delight of lording herself over others had never been trained out of her, and vice gripped her heart as she saw Abby approach. She smiled coyly and struck up a conversation. "Abby!" she exclaimed lightly and put her arms out for an anemic embrace. She was quickly caught up in a very real hug, which took her by surprise. Abby said nothing, but looked at her intently. Allison brushed back her bangs and picked up her drink from the picnic table, almost trying to hide behind the bottle. "It's been so long since I've seen you, but you look exactly the same." Her eyes scanned Abby up and down with hints of disdain. "My husband Jim, you remember him. He was on the football team back in the day." "Oh, but you probably don't remember. That really wasn't your thing anyway. She's over there with our son." "Yes, I saw them both." Abby nodded. She thought to herself how unhappy the father looked and how the toddler was clearly not having a good time. "Did you bring anyone with you?" Allison asked, raising an inquisitive brow. "My husband John came with me today. He's over there with the little boy in the stroller." Allison's eyes followed Abby to a tall man bending down to wipe ice cream off a boy's face, who looked too much old to be using a stroller. "Your son?" she asked after a few moments. "Practically." John strolled the boy over to the ladies and he smiled at them both. The boy in the stroller stretched out his hands for Abby's, and she took them into her own and kissed them. John squinted in the sunlight. "I think Ryan has had enough time outside, Abby. He's getting a bit tired, if you ask me." "He does look sleepy. I'm all ready to go. Why don't you wait here and I'll put the car around? You look tired too. You've been playing all day." She wiped the sweat from his forehead and fished out a bottle of water from the cooler at the table. "Sounds good, thank you." John handed her keys and he opened the bottle of water for Ryan. "Be right back," Abby said. Allison watched John give Ryan sips of water and she wrinkled her brow. The little boy had deformed hands and his head seemed too heavy for his own neck. "That's better, huh, pal?" John tousled Ryan's hair before smoothing it back down. Allison saw Jim carrying a screaming bundle towards her. "Oh, Jim, why do you have to carry him like that?" "Like what, Jim?" said, placing the boy in his mother's arms and not bothering to look at Allison at all before grabbing a drink from the table. "Never mind," Allison said, not thrilled with the toddler any more than Jim was. Before Allison could introduce him to John, Jim began to run off at the mouth. "I saw you talking to that one lady, Abby, right? Man, she hasn't changed since high school. A face only a mother could love." He laughed rudely. Allison's face flushed crimson, but before she could falter an apology, John said plainly and sincerely, "Abby is the most beautiful person I know." He stood up, nodded farewell, and wheeled Ryan out in the car, where Abby sat happily, smiling and honking the horn.
Did you want to read a couple excerpts of Soldier Up?
Sure, I can.
Okay. You can just be practicing pages. You can just look at each other once. Alright.
Do you guys want to go first? They're probably sick of my voice.
I love your voice. Do you want us to read?
Sure, you can go to the bullpen.
Deuteronomy
You bet. All right. Let's see. I read this one last morning,
Oh.
so. Let's see. I think this is a good one. So I don't know if you guys have seen Soldier Up. We have one copy out on display, but it's kind of like almost like a devotional, but it's more like just a bunch of short inspirational sayings. This book unintentionally is a lot about heaven. She published it 6 months before she passed and worked on it the last year-ish of her life. So she was dealing with chronic pain when she was writing this. She wasn't able to work anymore. She never got disabilities. She never got any kind of funding from the state. She was always denied, which was very difficult. So she had to trust God a lot for financial stuff. And of course, our family rallied around her. I do want to thank our dad, Mike, for the amazing financial support that he provided for her during her very last few difficult years. And there were a lot of expenses that came around that when you're sick. But she wrote this book out of pain. And I think a knowing in her spirit that she was going to go soon, but she didn't know for sure. But I'm just going to read a couple excerpts for you guys. This one is, "Death is but a doorway. If you belong to Jesus, death is not the end. It is not sad. It might be unknown and intimidating, but it is a doorway to the greatest adventure you've yet experienced. Even death in small things can be doorways, letting go of desires, relationships ending, leaving jobs, changing houses, losing community. All of these things that we might see as negative are often doorways for us to pass into the next phase of growth that God has for us. But if we stay in the tomb of grief, we can't emerge from the womb into life. Don't be frightened when death in any form comes for you, because the life Jesus gives us is eternal and undying." I'll just read one more. I love this last page. "One day you will see Jesus. Every man, woman, boy, and girl will one day see the King of Kings. We will all stand before him and see his truth, goodness, and beauty, his glory. He will pierce all darkness with his radiance and the truth of his word. It's hard to remember this when we have such small human tasks to attend to. We have classrooms, commutes, car seats, and crumbs. But if we train ourselves to think about seeing Jesus while we work at that fast food restaurant, go grocery shopping, or clean the dishes, our mind will be lifted above earthly things. If we have a heavenly mindset, little matters won't weigh us down. Instead, we will see how they add up into a life that matters, and we will work to make Jesus smile at our character when we see him." I'm gonna have either Angela or Felicia, either one of you, if you wanted to come up, you guys can both come up if you want to, and we'll have them speak. And then, do you want to
Should I at the end?
or shut up now?
Well, after they speak, I have something that she wrote just to close it out, and then if we're gonna read another poem.
And then when you guys can come on up. When we have Angela, after we have Angela and Felicia speak and Rachel is closing the poem, we'll open it up to open mic, and then you guys are free to stay. We are here till available here till 5. So, but please don't feel like you have to stay the whole time if you're. It can be a long event, but we wanted you guys to feel open to stay. It's a beautiful ground. So, and thank you guys so much for listening to us speak so much. So we appreciate it.
Hello, my name is Felicia. Ashley was my best friend for 20-ish years. We met back when, I think I was maybe at the end of 4th grade, 3rd grade, somewhere in there. She was just 1 year behind me. And so we met at church doing a dance thing, and it's fun to see, like they were talking about, how she grew over the years. And I know on our first encountering each other, we both had like a little bit of a private judginess going on. And so we were part of this ballet dance together that our dance teacher was putting together, but we didn't know each other yet, and both kind of like sized each other up and were like, okay, competition. Because both of us had prior dance experience. Not everyone there did, most people didn't, and so I was like, oh, she thinks she's really cool. But then Bethany, our dance teacher, was like, oh, you girls would get along really well. And so I'm like, oh, okay. So we got together and immediately hit it off. It was like, oh, it was like looking in a mirror. Like, we're just so similar. And so I have lots of really wonderful memories of her over the years. And so I have a lot I could say, but trying to narrow it down to like one of my favorite memories was she loved summer, loved to have a first day of summer party, and so she had several of them over the years that were a lot of fun. We were very obsessed with Narnia and C.S. Lewis, and when the first Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe movie came out, so exciting. And so we had a first day of summer Narnia party one year that she planned, and she had made a tea party, and we all dressed up, and we made flower crowns. We had a full-on coronation in the backyard. She had set out her fanciest chairs, and we put on music, and we walked up, and it was really lovely. I think there's probably some archery involved in that one as well, and I just love to see her creativity come together. She always had all these fun schemes and ideas and music videos, and yes, and I remember lots of walking around Mill Creek with her family, and just being kids together, and so I feel like there's a lot I could say, and we wanted to focus on what made her such a unique friend, and we've already covered quite a bit of this today, but it is her dedication to letting the Lord change her and use her, and being able to see over the years the work that he did in her life, and through so much life that was packed into those 30 years. She had a full life and experienced so much, and seeing how she just let the Lord work on her through all of that. I'll start with one of her poems. I'm not sure when she sent this to me, but she'd made a pretty little graphic to go with it, and it's titled, "My Body, Your Instrument." Gently usher meaning into my bones, love into my movements, peace into my sighs, harmony into my breaths, joy into my steps, delight into my eyes, perseverance into my chest, humility into my throat, wholeness into my stomach, kindness into my hands, diligence into my song, and strength into my head. Permeate my being with yourself. Let me be a live string on your instrument, dancing with the song that you make vibrantly alive and in tune with your heart, filled with the knowledge of your goodness and the strength of your love. By A.A. Fouch. I just felt like that was so fitting to see her journey over those years. Her life goal was to walk with the Lord and be transformed by his Holy Spirit to be more like Jesus. I admire the way that she truly saw people as she grew, and just, she didn't talk a lot about other people when we talk, and so it was always interesting to me to meet other people that knew her, and I feel like she didn't talk a lot about other people because she was just focused on the moment whenever she was talking to you. Asked the best questions, and knew how to make real deep conversation. And so she wasn't talking about what other people were doing. She was just really focused on the interaction at hand, which I thought was so cool. She was a real prayer warrior, just realizing that, when she said that she would pray for you, she meant it, and she was diligent about it. She had her little notebook of prayer requests, and she'd check in with you on how things were going, and that brought me a lot of comfort. And my third daughter is just about 10 months old now, and so she was born in October, and got to meet Ashley through FaceTime, And just during that pregnancy, it was wonderful knowing that Ashley was praying for me. I have a heart condition, and so she was praying for healthy pregnancy for me. I had a short pregnancy that ended in a loss right before that, and so also knowing that she was praying for the health of my baby, and it really did bring me a lot of comfort knowing that she was there for me in that way. Let's see. Okay, yeah, so reflecting on Ashley's life inspires me to emulate how she diligently sought the Lord through prayer, reading the Bible, and worship, as well as deep conversation with fellow Christ followers and reading books that offered a taste of the real truth. The verse that came to me when I learned that our physical fight had finally ended was James 1:12. Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord had promised to those who love him. I could picture her enjoying her heavenly coronation and smiled as I thought of our backyard Narnian coronation many years before. So now when I miss her, I remember the joy that she is experiencing in the presence of her beloved Savior. I know that in the grand scheme of things, it'll be a short time before I am there dancing right along with her. And I pray that in the meantime, I can keep my focus on making the most of the time the Lord gives me here on earth, like Ashley did.
So my name is Angela, and I'm Felicia's mom. And so I got to see Ashley from a different perspective because she'd be over at our house sometimes, or I'd be over at their house dropping Felicia off, and I'd always go in and have a little visit. And Ashley was just such a delightful child and grew into such a lovely young woman, and she was always just interesting to talk to. From all of the ages, you know, whatever age she was at, she was still fun and interesting to talk to. And so I have her Soldier Up book, and I just wanted to share two of them that really stood out to me. You took the third one. That's the one that took. So the first one is be God sustained. And this is the one, so I love this book, and I read it many times, and but this is the one that I have the page turned down, I have words underlined. So, existence is a dance between only two beings, you and God. The enemy likes to distract us from our first love, because without him, we are miserable, lost and confused. The world presents us with two solutions. The first solution, the material world, says to fill our infinite desire with finite people, places, and things. The second, the inward world attempts to cut off all desire so that the terrible longings in us grow numb. But there is a vertical path slicing between these worldly routes. Unity with Jesus. When we are constantly held by the infinite hands that made us, finite loves can be enjoyed without being drained by infinite needs. If we are afraid or insecure, we will cling to the wrong things. If we are proud, we will try to be self-sustaining. But if we lay down our own agenda, we can float on God's current of movement. In your heart of hearts, you must lock yourself in a room with God and not let anything come between you. Let go of everything willingly, and God will give you what you truly need, which is mostly his own presence and love to sustain you. And so it's those last few sentences, that idea of locking yourself away from all of the earthly distractions, the things that make us busy and frazzled and frustrated, that we can lock ourselves away from those things and lock ourselves in with God. And when we get our attention on him, all those other things fade away, and the reality that they don't really matter can really really reach into our heart and give us peace. And so that's such a wonderful thing, because the world can definitely not be peaceful. And then the other one, treat human beings with honor and love. And I think that this is so important, because this is really our mission. And if everybody lived this way, it would make the world such a different place. The enemy has tricked many people into believing that humans are worthless drain on the earth. We may feel this way about ourselves, others, or both. Though we are far from perfect, we were designed for perfection. We were made in the image of God, the highest honor in all creation. When we treat others or ourselves with disrespect, we spit on God's image. We ought to honor and love humans, not because we are great by our own merit, but because God has a great plan to make us into the honorable creatures He envisioned from the beginning. Jesus has called you ever upward. Do the same for every person you meet, even when it's difficult. And so I just think that having a relationship with God is not that complicated. You love God and love people. And when you have those things in place, it just makes life so much sweeter, and it makes you sweeter too. So the thing that I appreciated so much about Ashley was, as Felicia shared, her being a prayer warrior. And so at a time when a lot of people would become bitter, when they have chronic pain, when they start to not be able to do the things that they love, a lot of us, the things that we do are what give us our value and our worth. She wasn't like that. And so in that moment, she used that time that she was on her back in her bed to pray for people around the clock. And it gave me a great deal of peace also to know that she was praying for us. Our family, like all families, has had struggles. My son has struggled a lot. And I knew that Ashley was praying for him. And it just gave me so much peace. And just as my own mom has struggled with losing her mobility, she started to feel like she's not worth anything. And I try to constantly remind her, because of Ashley's example, that as long as you're alive and breathing, there's a lot that you can do and a lot of ways that you can be helpful to people. And so,
So I'm going to let Rachel read your things right there. She's going to close like a poem, and then, is that right? What is it? Oh, is it? Okay, is it journal entry?
It's like yeah.
Okay, so she's going to read that, and then we're going to open up the floor for open mic. So thank you guys.
So this is, and I don't know when she wrote this. I feel like it was a couple years ago. I don't know where I found this. It was for other people to write. I wasn't snooping. But this is called Learning How to Die. Learning how to die is hard. You have to learn how to give everything up. You have to learn how to let things go, stupid little things that hold you back from giving it all away. You have to learn how not to talk to people, how to not talk to people out of your own insecurities, hoping they will somehow fill the hole. You have to learn how to stop procrastinating and just get things done, no matter how tired or imperfect or underqualified you feel. You have to give up pleasures like eating or drinking too much. You have to let all the materialism wash over you. You have to speak when you're tired, and be quiet when you're not. You can't complain about the blood and sweat that gets in your eyes. You soldier on. That is life. And when things seem so wearying, it is a comfort to know that they are supposed to be. I am supposed to die. I am not supposed to stay here forever. The troubled waters in my soul will one day stop churning, and the wheels that never seem to stop spinning will finally come to a halt. The long fight will be over, and the day will draw to a close. These eyes surrounded by wrinkles will grow dim, and my lungs will exhale their final breath. I will be relieved of earth. I will be free from my body. Everything that I was and all that I stood for will be etched into a single stone. As I march to my final resting place, I must keep in mind that no one else is destined to accompany my soul to the grave except the one who made it. In case I forget, life is a personal journey. Loneliness does not truly exist unless I let it. I am never alone. The universe and its inhabitants watch my struggle from cradle to grave. I must simply remember them. So, anyone who wants to come up, you feel free. And we're just going to have a little open mic, and then we're just going to mingle and talk and have a little bit more time to talk with each other and eat some more food and all of that.
I'll share some. Well, so I'm Ashley's dad, Mike, and when I got the news of all this, and I was contemplating, everything that happened, my first thought was, well, Ashley, how could you write a story like this? The heroine is not supposed to die. And then I was reminded of this story the first book she read, which was Charlotte's Web. And I remember Ashley was reading Charlotte's Web, and I was thinking, I don't think that book actually has a great ending here. And then when she got to the part where Charlotte died, she just bawled and bawled and bawled. But there's something about that book too, which I think that we all need to take to heart, which is at the end of the book, it talks about Charlotte had the little spiders, and then they started to float away and with their little parachutes. And I think that's what Ashley wants us to do, is to take to heart everything that she had learned. And there's not much more I could say really to top what everybody else has said about her life and how she lived and how she loved. But she wants us to be the ones that go out with that message and that love. So, anyway, thank you.
I don't know if anyone else wants to share, but if you do, feel free to come on up. You can just, no pressure either. So, you can take a moment if you want to say something, or just say something.
Okay, so my son Justin had sent me a text message to share because he couldn't be here today. And I thought that I had it right on top of my trees.
Did you have a poem? She wrote like a ton of poems.
I mean, there's so many. Like, it doesn't even, like, there's just a ton. That's the thing. I mean, there is
She was
one.
a very prolific writer. She never
Yes.
stopped writing.
I mean, honestly, it sounds sad. Every poem, I'm not gonna say every poem, but a lot of her best poems were She just, and like this is, it's so sad because it's like it seems like we're just picking the ones that talk about it. We're not. Like she thought about heaven all the time. And that is kind of what is so wild about her life. Did you find it? Okay, and then I'll read the poem, the death poem. Okay. But yeah, this is one that actually our friend made a little, we don't have any with us, which I wish we did. I think we have one, a bookmark for Soldier of Buttercup, and it has this poem on it. And because our friend just loved this poem so much. So this one, it doesn't have a title, but it says, "My body seeks its own desire. My mind is setting things on fire. My spirit fights with all it has. When I am dead, I will be glad. Repose will find me when I wake, with renewed body for love's sake. Ghost no more, I finally rise, to have and hold all that is mine. Yet all is mine, not for my work, but for his life, his death, rebirth. I'll gladly fall before my King, for his grace has changed everything. In sorrow, now I toil and spin, knowing I hold hell within. Yet each day he burns my heart, that wall that keeps us far apart. In his hand he holds the key, made from nails to set me free. I ache to run into his side, to be a pure and loving bride." And I do find that this does look like a wedding. And she never got married, but she was the bride of Christ. And I think she was made for heaven. I think some people are a little bit more tied down to earth. We always joked that she had like 1 foot on earth and 1 foot in heaven, because she just, that was just the way that she was, and she really, I think that Jesus wanted him for himself. So, and then go ahead, Angela.
Okay, so this is nothing deep, this is just a fun memory from our son Justin. He says, "Well, my favorite Ashley memories are lighting smoke bombs with her on the 4th of July and going to see that TSO concert, which is Trans-Siberian Orchestra, and seeing the Space Needle fireworks on New Year's Eve and then getting hailed on the way back to the car." He says, "I'm looking forward to the tea party she's invited me to, because she told him that she'd have a tea party ready for him when he gets to heaven. And he's looking forward to seeing what 2 fruits from the tree of life she's picked out for me to try." It was a lot of fun cosplaying and Ren fairing and movie making with her too.
I don't think I have to come up there because I've got a really loud voice.
Okay, go for it, Annette.
I'm Ashley's aunt, Lynette, and I think the thing about Ashley is that she was a mommy. She didn't get married, but she was a mommy. And when I watched her mommy, it had a little kindred spirit with her. And one day we got a phone call. Catherine was just reminding me of this. Aunt Rhonda called and said, "Ashley wants to keep her first tooth. Tell her that's dumb." Because Aunt Rhonda was not sentimental. Her mama. I would keep everything. And so Ashley and I are on the phone. I talked to her. She really wanted to keep her first tooth. And so I told my sister, "You need to let her keep her first tooth. This is really important to Ashley." Ashley was that trinket girl you can see by her table. She held memories and things, not that she was devoted to things, but those memories that came from those. And the memories of always having the camera in her hand. She was always video, she's going to take pictures and all that. But it was all the things like when we would show up, all of us, the 4 of us with the 4 of them, and she'd go to the kids. "Everybody's accepted Jesus, right? First thing in the door, Michael, kind of like you. What are you going to do with your..." That was Ashley. "Has everybody accepted Jesus?" Okay, because if not, that's going to be what she's working on during the time that we're there. We did a lot of fun things together, but she was always the mommy, and I loved watching her mommy. She was an excellent mommy.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I don't know if you meant to mention this. It's so hard to go over. I mean, that's actually why I did the fun facts, because I couldn't talk long enough to cover everything that Ashley did, everything that she was. But this will be the last thing that I say, and then I'm gonna we'll release you guys. And Ashley was our mom. losing her was like losing my mom. Our mom was sick when we were young. I think I did mention that. That's sadly why she can't even be here today. And it's devastating for our mom to not be able to be here because the two of them were like inseparable. Ashley adored her mom, and even though our mom was so not sentimental at all, not a thing keeper, they both taught each other a lot, and Ashley taught our mom to be more sentimental, and our mom taught Ashley to be strong, to go through trials. She prepared her for the torture that Ashley would endure with her health. And our mom led Ashley to the Lord, and brought her into that heavenly mindset of thinking. But Ashley kind of surpassed it to the point where when Ashley was 3, or after she got saved, she said, "So when do I get to meet Jesus?" And our mom was like, "Well, he's always with you, but you're not going to get to see him until you die." And she was like, "I want to be in heaven now. Why do I want to be here? Like, if Jesus is there, I want to be there." And she's like, "You're 3. Like, what are you thinking? What are you talking about?" So they balanced each other in sort of a very odd couple, very unlikely pair of friends that were so close. So it's very hard for mom to not be here today. But if you do think of her, if you could just say prayer. It's obviously a lot to lose a child, but unfortunately sometimes health can keep you from doing the things you want to do, like coming to this today. But I just want to say thank you all for taking the time to come to grieve with us, to rejoice with us that Ashley is in heaven now. That's why we wanted to call it a graduation ceremony. She graduated, and she got to graduate early. Lucky girl. She just kind of did like the fast track of life and tried to learn as much as she could in 30 years, and she did it. She succeeded, and I said it a million times, but she wasn't perfect. I don't want you to walk away thinking that we think that Ashley had a halo over her head or something like that, but she just really relied on Jesus for absolutely everything, and that's why she has a very beautiful life, and we're just wanting to carry on her legacy as best as we can. So I'm not trying to do like a sales pitch or anything, but if you do want to have inspirational sayings to lean on, Ashley's book is on Amazon if you want to buy it. We also have some copies today, so if anyone wants one today, you can absolutely come and ask them for one. And thank you guys so much for all coming and spending time with us today. Oh, did you want to say something? Yeah.
But I need Elodie to come up. You're not going to ask me to dance. Yeah. All right. Shoot. Hello. Good to see you. Good to see you, girls. Wonderful to see you. So, Elodie and I were in the Steppers class together that Ashley taught our dance class. And I joined later on, towards the end, and then our class ended when COVID started because it became dangerous for people to go and gather. So, a friend of mine, Andrea, had been in the dance class for several years, and I was always very jealous that she got to go to these classes. And then, so when I got to a point in my life where I had a little more time, I went and joined the dance class with them, and so the instructor was this young girl. And I just couldn't figure her out. She liked to talk a lot, and we would dance a little bit, and then she wanted to talk some more. And but she was very kind to everyone. And the dance group was called the Silver Steppers, and they were elderly people. And well, seasoned. And it occurred to me that Ashley really liked older people, and she did. Got along very well with them. and we would dance. She would have us do dances for nursing homes and the state fair
and children. On and on and on. Ashley had untold imagination of what we could do, how we could do it. Her creativity just spilled over and went right to our hearts. And we decided we can do this. We had been dancing for 10 years and we wound up together, the Silver Steppers, for 14 years. But Ashley came in at the end because our lovely instructor of 90-some years old, a past Rockette from New York City, she had to give up. She could no longer do it, and so the YMCA picked up Ashley from where? I don't know. I don't know where she came from, but I'll tell you, she was a dynamo. She said, we can do all of the modern dances, we can do the old dances, we can do the ladylike dances, which we weren't used to. But Ashley was a treasure. She came in when we needed her, and she performed.
She tried to get us to do hip hop.
And we did.
I'm not gonna say we did it well, but we did it. Ashley was a lovely soul, and I understand how you can miss her so much. I was watching a couple of our videos that we did of our performances, and we did a Michael Jackson song, and we all dressed up like zombies. And your mother was doing the recording, and she was laughing so hard. But yeah, it was pretty silly, and we put it on as it was a surprise pop-up thing at the high school we did for her dance class that she taught at the high school. But yes, if you can imagine us all as zombies, and it was pretty wild.
The thing was, Ashley had no bounds when it came to creativity and dance. And she felt that we, at 70 and 80, we could do this, and we did. That was the best part about Ashley. She instituted that ability that she had and just gave it to us. Well, our 99-year-old instructor passed away, and I don't think Ashley was around then when Eleanor died, but I remember how hard it was for Eleanor to give up the reins to Ashley in the beginning. You can imagine, 90 to 27, 26.
I think she was like 24.
Was she 24 when we got her? A baby. But she didn't act like one. She acted like an instructor. And she taught us. We loved her.
And she did it all with love and grace.
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
It's wonderful to hear you guys say that, because I'm like feeling guilty because there was so much that she did in her life. I'm like, I didn't even mention about the Steppers. And there truly was so much that she did. We didn't know tearful. I mean, it's hard to start talking about it because I just kind of want to cry. But there were so many, like the creativity, like she said, it really was unbounding. And I don't know, there's just so much. I mean, we didn't even mention about there was certain things. I'll just say honorable mention for the things that she said.
the fun facts.
Well, okay. So I will do a little shout out. Felicia and Grace and me and Ashley. Ash just one day we were all playing together and she she's like, oh, we're a club and we're called the Cinerayas, and she wrote us like a code. She wrote us like a different, what was it like every letter had like a different, like she wrote like symbols. She had this whole thing for us. We had this blog where we would talk to each other. We took all these photos, we'd dress up in these dresses, and it's so funny. There were so many things that she did like that. And then she had like a TV show for us and the cousins called Twist. And so every time that the cousins would come and get together,
She's like,
she would
everyone,
come.
we're acting.
We didn't even
Doing
have a
music videos,
choice.
we're like,
No, we didn't even have a choice.
yeah, I think that's where Michael and I got into
Oh,
yeah, no, seriously.
Seriously, and we did lots of music videos, lots and lots of music videos. They're, so badly done. But of course, she wasn't in it. She would just film me. And then be like, do this, and this is how you're going to do it. And then no one will see it, I promise. And she uploads it to YouTube, shows it to every family, and they get together. It's like,
No, we're like, oh,
yeah.
I didn't mind so much. But
You're like, stop
yeah,
showing.
Rachel was like,
You're gonna play what? I feel like her own little world was so rich, and so, but if there was a person, she was like, we could do something creative together.
yeah, the more people were, the more
Extras in the show.
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
She and I mentioned this on the trivia thing that I did, but I think some of my most fond memories of her were summers, because that's when all us kids got to be together, and we were kind of like the Peanuts characters. There's no parents around, Mom's sick, Dad's working really hard. We don't have cars, we can't drive, so we walked everywhere. And we lived in Mill Creek, so beautiful, beautiful town, and safe enough to walk everywhere. But she just, during the summer, she was like, we're gonna get out, we're gonna do things where we would either draw or paint or go on walks. She once had us. She would read aloud to us. When I say like Maria von Trapp, that was who she was. We weren't
allowed to be bored.
no, it was like
Bored?
yeah, she was like, this is, you can do yeah, she was amazing. I mean, one summer she had us walk to the library almost every other day, that we would have to dance everywhere we go. She was like, every step, if there's a crack in the sidewalk, you have to do this move. I mean, we were so ripped by the end of the summer. We were built. But she was so full of life, and I think that's why it came such a shock to so many people that she did pass away, because she was so vivacious and charismatic and full of life. But she kept her pain very well hidden from everyone, even us, until it was can't hide it anymore. I don't want to take too much more of your guys' time, but Ashley's life was short, but it was beautiful. Yes, did you want to share? Oh yeah, absolutely. And then is there anyone else that wants to share anything? Yes, please do. Yeah, anyone else? I just want to make sure I make time for them. Please. Okay, so we'll have, is there anyone else? We've got Evan, Alice, Isaac. Good? Okay.
So I went to college with Ashley, and it's hard to call her Ashley sometimes because she called herself B to those of us who were in college with her. But after college, I started a writers group called the Wordsmiths, and I basically brought all the best writers that I knew at Northwest University together, and she was one of them. And she wrote so much, and I had no clue how much until much later when she was nearing the end. And she, despite having written so much that was so incredible, truly, I think I can honestly say she's the greatest writer I've ever known. She never wanted to talk about her own writing, and she would always be so interested in what the other members of the Wordsmiths, me, my brother, and our friend Ryan, were writing, and she just seemed so amazed by our writing and seemed totally just unaware that her writing was just as good, if not significantly better. And I ended up editing Soldier of Buttercup and her first poetry collection, I Lost My Keys in Space, and other oddly comforting poems. And I'm working on bringing some of her other things to life, and that is truly the greatest honor that I could ever have, because she was one of the most gifted artists, not just in dance and not just in poetry, but also in novel writing. And some of these books she was been working on for over a decade. And yeah, so she was just so humble that even she had a whole book written that was practically perfect that our group didn't even know about, even though we met for 3 years every single week to talk about each other's writing and edit each other's work. And so, yeah. I don't think there is so much more that I could say, but one of the most talented artists and minds that I've ever known, and despite the admonition not to want to try to be like her, I want to be like Bea, and maybe that just means I want to be more like Jesus.
Well, my name is Ellis. I'm Evan's brother, and I had a similar experience with Bea. I actually never even met her in person. Might have even passed her in the halls at Northwest University, but I never knew her until I was part of the Wordsmiths group. And the thing that really sticks out to me now that she's gone is when Evan and I meet with our friend Ryan, we still have the group, and when we're reading a certain passage and we're trying to figure out how do we make that perfect, how do we make that better, and one of us says, Bea would know how to make that the right way, especially her incredible descriptions. We would always tell her, you are writing in a way that no one we know could even try to replicate. She was a genius, and I recently bought a bookmark that with one of her quotes on it because I want to always remember what she said. She said, "If they had but read better books, they may have been better men." That is one of the kind of callings that I feel she's laid upon me, is to read the best books to become a better man. And obviously, when she said that, the Bible was at the forefront of her thoughts. It always was. And we would spend hours talking about how, Pride and Prejudice and different amazing books were literary, but the Bible was so much deeper than anything. After a really hard time in my life, I came back home from Tacoma and was just broken up by some things that happened, and I had a crisis of faith. And she said, "Ellis, you need to go watch a bunch of videos by Mike Winger, a theology guy on YouTube." And I said, okay. And I did. And this is like 400 hours later of theological research. She led me to a richer faith in so many ways. But it was only after all that research, it kind of cooled down, that I realized that she was the gift, not any theology, not any, philosophy. It was her life that made the difference. And I think that's what we should all remember from her, that it's our lives that make the difference, not even our thoughts. So thank you.
Well, I also went to Northwest University with Ashley, although the timing was such that we didn't actually have classes together, even though we were both English majors. And it's actually a little bit stunning to me just to see in retrospect the way that clearly the Lord brought us together, because I was trying to remember the exact details, but I know that it was a happenstance moment in the hallway that I think I was talking with someone and she overheard something that I said that sounded interesting, and she ended up approaching me, and so we had a really complex conversation about very deep things randomly in the hallway, and then eventually we just continued to have having conversations over time, and it's just, she met me at a time that was very conflictual for me for a lot of different reasons. I was going through a variety of really difficult situations, and just, there's so many details about the situation, so I'm going to just try to get past all of that. But just suffice to say that it was a very difficult situation, and as the years went on, even leading up to the end for her, we had phone conversations every so often, and it was just incredible to me that there is one defining thing that she brought, and especially the last two conversations I had with her were just so convicting because of what she was going through, and knowing that she was giving glory to the Lord in a way that was so profound, and it was just, and it was stunning in its beauty. Speaking of that short story, it was appropriate, the beauty that she manifested in her heart, and I thought the same thing. I don't remember who said that it was her brother, that I'm sitting there thinking, like, I can't believe we're talking about what's going on with me, because, like, I know what's going on with you. I even told her that. I was like, you do realize this is a little ridiculous, right? She was like, it's not ridiculous at all, actually, but it was just a beautiful thing to recognize, and it's something that has stayed with me, and that she taught me. I don't know if I've learned the lesson, but it's the lesson that is being held before me, that in all things to give glory to the Lord, and that it's not like in spite of the pain we go through, but because of the pain we go through. Jesus went to the cross, and my wife and I were just discussing recently the extent of that tragedy, and yet he somehow did that with joy, right? And then here's Ashley doing the same thing, going to her death with joy in her heart, and it is an earthly manifestation of Christ for all of us to observe and to learn from, and it's something that I very much am aspiring to, and so yeah, I just have to say thank you, Ashley.
I have a friend here from, did you want to share? Yes? Okay. So I have a couple friends here, this is Esme, at Ashley's dance group for several years, so, and then we have Katie from, a friend from high school, so they're gonna say a couple words.
Hi, so in the 4th grade, I was asked to write an essay about someone who was influential, and I wrote about Ashley, and see if I can pull it up. Sorry guys. Okay, so unfortunately I don't think I can find it, but I can just say that Ashley was one of the most influential people in my life. She taught me so much from how to be a better dancer, to have expression in my dance, which has helped me in the future in my performing arts endeavors, and also just how to be she was just the most kind, amazing, radiant person I've ever met, and she really anything she talked about, her face just lit up, and she was just, I loved those calls that we had, even when we were miles and miles apart. It just made my day so much, and she was just such a good teacher and friend, and that's all I have to say.
Hi, well, I've been sitting a while. My name's Katie, and I'm grateful to God for the Fouch family because Ashley and I went to middle school together, and Ashley brought me home to her whole family, and we would read the Bible together, and I'd ask all my questions about what does this mean to follow Jesus? I knew about him, but I didn't know what it meant to follow him. And Ashley also taught me to ask questions. I wore Hollister in middle school, and I did not think that was a sin. But Ashley did ask me, how can you be a Christian and wear this stuff? So that was one of my favorite.
Was that your judgy face?
Maybe, but
On record, she changed.
so Ashley loved me through it. But to this day, like, I still love talking to people about, like, you can wear Hollister and be a believer. But like, Ashley she wanted to know people's hearts and what was gearing them towards Christ or away, and to meet them there. And so I'm grateful to Ashley that God brought her to me selfishly at Heatherwood. She was homeschooled at the time and took choir there. So, but I want to thank the whole Fouch family because, of course, it's the Lord who brought me to know him, but he brings people into your life so that you can know him. And the Fouch family just loved on me when my family was going through a very hard time. And so, yeah, her legacy does live on. I worked at the same YMCA as her for a short time, and I think I've seen some of you at the YMCA, so yay. But it was a pleasure to be alongside Ashley and her. She's always been creative, but she worked on her Play Mastermind, and just seeing her work on that, the way that she served her family was incredible. And so, anyway, it's a pleasure to be here. I wish I could have known her more through our adulting years, but just to see the Fouch family here and know that Ashley's legacy lives on is incredible. So thank you, Fouch family.
Thank you all so much for being here, for sharing, and we got another one.
Up and get up. Been sitting here so long.
I know. But we could go for hours and hours about Ashley, my goodness.
Usually like humble myself.
Yeah, no, you're good.
I won't take too long.
Oh, you are absolutely fine, Sherry. You are good.
Hi, everybody. I didn't dance with Ashley, but I did perform with her. When the Silver Steppers went out to step, I emceed the show and did a little comedy routine. I imitated somebody with "Howdy, I'm Cousin Minnie Pearl." I do, and all the old ladies and men, they recognize just when I walked in with the hat on, and so we had fun. And the last year of Ashley's life started in March. She and I kept up a communication on Messenger on Facebook. We talked as much as you can talk, typing and whatever, for about 9 months. And she was a great support system for me, and I tried to be for her. And we shared a lot of things. And so I really missed her a lot that way. But as you can tell by all the comments made today, Ashley touched so many people. And I just have a feeling that she's not really gone. She's in every one of us. And one very special place that she is, and I think you can see it today, is in these two beautiful young ladies that have been up here today. You two remind me so much of her. Not only do you look a little bit like her, a lot, but you sound like her. You have inside of you, you have her thoughts, and you have all the wonderful things that she lived by and taught you. You know, you're going to carry on forever. So much of her, and we all can take all the good things that she taught us and showed us and go reach out to other people and carry on with what she showed us. And I just think it's a beautiful thought to go out with. So I wanted to share that with you. Looking down on us every now and then, I go, thank you, Ashley, Angel Ashley. I know you probably helped that have to happen. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sherry. I love that thought, and that's a great thought to close with, is that we're here to carry on Ashley's legacy. And that's why we picked the song Legacy and her, when we did the online memorial. And it just talks about, you know, I want to leave a legacy. I want to make a mark on things. Did I choose to love? Did I point to you enough to make a mark on things? I want to be an offering, a child of mercy and grace. Who blessed your name unapologetically. I want to leave a legacy, and we just want to carry that on, especially us Fouch kids, Michael, myself, Rachel, and we were all very, very close, and we just want to carry on what she did, loving people and loving God. And so I hope you guys all felt that today. We're so very grateful that you guys came to share in this with us, and we know we talked a long time, but I really do hope it blessed all of you, and so just enjoy the rest of the night and take it all in. I hope you guys, if you need more snacks or refreshments or whatever. We also have, outside there's a little station of some photos that she took. She was a photographer and everything. Yeah, of course, yeah. She did. Another thing. That's just a few of the many, many pictures that she took throughout her life. So I hope you guys all enjoy it, and thank you so much for coming.